Hello, 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 friends. Happy Marvelous Monday. I hope that you are all well. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am Karissa Spann, the landlord and tenant coach, and today we are continuing the discussion. It's April, and many of you know that it is National Fair Housing Month. And so today we're just going to continue the discussion about fair housing laws and what does fair housing mean? Who does fair housing laws protect, and why is fair housing laws, why are they important? And just to give a brief introduction again of who I am, I am passionate about sharing this information. This is what I do. I share information that helps tenants as well as landlords. And so if this is your first time tuning in, let me say thank you so much. If you are watching by way of YouTube, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Please do like my Facebook page. That way, when I share information, which is helpful, not just for you, but maybe somebody that you know who is either a landlord and or a tenant. I promise you that this information costs you absolutely nothing. But housing providers and landlords who don't have this information, well, if you've had a chance to check out the description, it could cost thousands of dollars. And so today, I'm sharing information, true story where a landlord, well, actually two landlords, husband and wife, housing providers, they were actually sued by a prospect, by a family that claimed that this landlord filed discrimination. I mean, that they for whatever reason, they felt like this landlord discriminated against them. So they filed a complaint and they actually received monetary payment for their complaint. And so fair housing laws are real, guys. It's not necessarily something that landlords must do intentionally, because we all know that sometimes what we can do, sometimes we probably shouldn't do, because laws are in place to protect tenants. And what we don't know can and will hurt us. And in this situation and instance, this landlord, this couple found out the very hard way. And so today we are going to cover familial status. All right. So over the past few weeks, I've shared information. I covered the 7 protected classes. And what does that mean? So I'm just going to basically do a recap of that today, because I need people to understand that fair housing laws are in place to protect tenants and landlords. I don't want to see anybody get themselves into trouble because of fair housing laws. All right. So if you have any comments or if you have questions, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. Let me know where you're tuning in from if this is your first time joining me today. So give me 1 second. Let me just make sure that I am live on all of my platforms. So excuse me for one moment. So if you are tuning in by way of YouTube, please let me know. If you're tuning in by way of Facebook, please let me know. I do have viewers who are tuned in weekly. Some are from YouTube and some are for Facebook. All right, so give me one moment. Let me just make sure that I'm live on all of my platforms. Excuse me, guys. Hello, Pearline. Thank you so much for tuning in from ATL. All right, guys, give me one moment. All right, and so as I am preparing to go a little deeper into the discussion today, I'm always interested in knowing where my viewers are tuned in from. So again, if you don't mind, let me know where you're watching from. And here's why that's important. I like to know because I want to give information that helps viewers in different geographical locations, because all laws are not the same. All right. So what is applicable in the DC metropolitan area may not apply to jurisdictions such as Atlanta or North Carolina. So I just want to make sure that I'm giving information that will help you all. All right. So I am going to cover the 7 protected classes, but please do also note that just depending on where the rental property is, that there may be additional protected classes. All right. So the National Fair Housing Act, it came about in 1968, and it came about pretty much to prevent discrimination as it pertains to housing. All right. It's not just limited to residential property. All right. It also includes the purchase or the sale of property. All right. But for the sake of what I do, I'm going to keep it strictly towards rental property. Hello, hello. Thank you so much, Sam, for tuning in from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much for tuning in from YouTube. Hello, Val. Thank you, beautiful. Happy Monday to you. All right, so I'm going to bring up the 7 protected classes. So here's the thing that I want to do. I don't want to assume that everybody is knowledgeable about the information that I'm sharing today. And so this is why I share information each and every Monday right here on this Facebook page or my YouTube channel, because I recognize that as a housing educator, as a property manager, as a housing provider, as a college professor who teaches property management, that everybody just don't know this information, which is why I'm sharing these stories, right? So today I'm sharing a story where this landlord couple, they had to pay $6,000 to somebody that they never even rented to. It was a prospect, and I'm sure they never imagined in their wildest dreams that they would get sued from someone they don't even rent their property to and would actually have to pay it. Can you imagine what that feels like? They literally had to pay $6,000 because of what they did not know. So if you find any of this information helpful, please share it with others. It costs you absolutely nothing to get this free information. But if you don't get it, well, as we saw today, and as you're going to hear a little bit more about it, it could cost you thousands of dollars. All right. So I do want people to understand that the 7 protected classes are federally protected. All right. Federally protected classes, meaning that no matter where the property is, in the United States, there are laws that protect tenants when it comes to fair housing. All right, so the Fair Housing Act, as I indicated, it was created in 1968 to prevent discrimination. All right, so here's the thing. Here are the 7 protected classes. They're right here: race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, and national origin. That means that tenants are protected automatically according to those 7 protected classes. Now, just depending on where the rental property is, there are going to be additional protected classes. So in some areas, such as the Washington, D.C. area, and many jurisdictions and cities throughout the United States, income is also a protected class. So last week, if you didn't catch me last week, please watch the replay. I shared information on a housing provider who was sued because they denied an applicant access to rent the rental property because they said that they don't accept the Section 8 program. Well, when income is a protected class, then landlords cannot say that they do not accept Section 8 because that is a protected class according to income. All right. So today we are going to cover the topic of familiar status. So let me just bring that up on the screen. Give me one moment because I want you to understand what that looks like. All right. So these are the 7 federal protected classes. All right. Race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, and national origin. All right. So when it comes to race, if a person is Black, if they're white, if they're Native American, if they are multiracial, right? If they're mixed, housing providers and landlords cannot discriminate because people are in this particular category. All right. They cannot be discriminated according to the color of their skin. So some landlords, I've had some colleagues of mine, they say, well, Karissa, I don't have a problem renting to African Americans. I just prefer to not rent to the darker ones because, I've had a couple of, really dark skinned guys and they described, and they were very honest to describe that, they were a little concerned. They were maybe afraid of renting to darker African-American males who wear maybe like dreadlocks. And I can understand, their hesitation, their reservation, but the law says that landlords cannot discriminate based on the color of skin. Landlords cannot discriminate against prospects or tenants because of their religion. All right. Doesn't matter if people are Muslim, Christian, if they're atheists and they just flat out don't believe in God, if they're Jehovah's Witness or whatever their religion or their faith is, housing providers can flat out not refuse to rent to people according to that category. All right, when it comes to sex, now, President Biden, they have some new language they've added as it pertains to sex. So originally it was male and female. And so now transgender, the lesbian, gays, LGBTQ community. I'm sorry if I jacked it up. I probably should get that right. It's not a discrimination if I don't get it right, but that is also now one of the protected classes according to sex. So that means housing providers and landlords, if you get someone who is a transgender that is trying to rent your property, you cannot refuse to rent to them because they don't look like the normal male or female, okay? You cannot do it. When it comes to disability, you cannot refuse, you cannot deny access to people who are disabled. And please hear me on this, hear me, because I know somebody on here does not know. If a person tell you that they are disabled, you cannot ask them by law what is their disability. You cannot do that. It is against the law. So please make sure you are not asking people, well, I don't see a wheelchair. You don't walk with a limp. What is your disability? Please do not do that. Here's why that's important. Because there is a such thing as testers. All right. Testers are people who will, they'll pretty much just troll landlords to see, or they'll do like this test to see, okay, well, let me ask this type of question to see how the landlord is going to respond. That is their job, to find landlords and housing providers who are violating fair housing laws. And that is the quickest way to get a lawsuit brought against you. So please make sure that you are not asking people what their disability is. Okay. So here's the thing with disability. All right. Disability is physical and it can be mental. So some things you may not see. Some people may not walk with a limp. Some people may not be in a wheelchair, but it doesn't mean they're not disabled, right? So you can't ask people what their disability is. All right. And so today we are talking about familiar status. That means that's families with children. People or children under the age of 18. If people have children, you cannot just flat out refuse. And so today, that's what the topic is about. Because one landlord, one couple, they did not know that. They didn't tune in to my weekly lives. They didn't get this free information, and it cost them $6,000. All right, true story. I can't make this up. Then we talked about national origin. That is the actual or the perceived place of birth, the country of origin. You can't discriminate because someone is from a different country and you just don't like them. Maybe you had a bad run-in with somebody that looked like them, right? You can't flat out discriminate because people are from another country. That's discrimination. All right. So let me go to the next one. All right, because I want you to understand the severity of this. All right. And so today we're talking about this couple who this couple had a 2-bedroom rental property. All right. In this apartment, the prospect was a husband and wife, and they had 3 children. They're trying to rent a 2-bedroom apartment, okay? So let me just paint the picture. You have a husband, you have a wife. They did the background check. Their credit was good. Their income fit the criteria that the landlord or housing provider was looking for, okay? No issues there. No red flags with the credit. They didn't have an eviction history. They didn't have a criminal history that would have prevented them from otherwise getting it approved and moving into this rental property. All right. So the landlord, they did the background check. Everything checked out okay. All right. So this landlord couple decided that this family, they had too many children. They had too many people that were going to occupy this 2-bedroom rental. All right, so here is why I want housing providers as well as tenants to know what the law says. Because guess what? Tenants have rights. Tenants have rights. And you'll find out that by the time we conclude today, that prospects have rights as well. All right, and so that's what people don't understand. All right. Perline, thank you. You paid attention, Perline. You said race, color, religion, sex, income, and 2 more. Absolutely. Hello, Dr. Shante. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's right, Pearlie. You said stigma. They can't do it. And unfortunately, some people do, and they find themselves in the hot seat. All right. And so this couple, unfortunately, they did learn the hard way, guys. They learned that they should have taken time to know what the law says in that particular jurisdiction. All right. So in that area, here's what the law says, that people are able to, families, individuals, whoever, when it comes to the occupancy standard, all right, that there is 2 per bedroom, 2 per sleeping quarter. Let me just say that, 2 per bedroom and 1 in the living room. All right. So if you have, this is a family of 5, right? So that meant that they did not over occupy. Okay. So it was the husband, it was a wife. That's 1 bedroom. It was 2 children that could have gone into the 2nd bedroom, and maybe that 3rd child could have slept in the bedroom. All right. So based off of occupancy standards that this couple didn't know about, this landlord, they didn't know, this landlord, husband and wife team, they had no idea. They just said, you know what? You passed the background check, but unfortunately, it's going to be too many people in the apartment, so we can't approve it. And that was wrong. That's where the error came, because they did not know the law. All right. Now, if the situation changed, let's say that this family had 6 people. All right. Then at that point, it may have been where, situation where they were over occupying the unit. But 5 was right at the level. Like, they couldn't go over 5. This couple, they knew it. They knew their finances. They knew the law. All right. They knew that the landlord could not say no. But unfortunately, the landlord said no, and they found out the wrong way. They found out by having to pay $6,000 because they didn't know. Are you kidding me? Because you don't know, please, I promise you, I can't make this stuff up. These laws are in place to protect tenants. Okay. All right. So please share this information with somebody that you know who is a tenant or a landlord. This is what I do. I teach this stuff for a living. I enjoy making a difference. So let me bring up 3 points on the screen, because I don't want to hold you. But if you have questions today, please go ahead and drop it in the comment section, because I want people, as a matter of fact, I'm going to do a poll a little bit later before we conclude, but I want you to understand the dynamics of what's really going on here. Now, hear me when I say this, because we are still in the national pandemic, right? So there's this global health pandemic. COVID-19 is still here, and it's very real. And unfortunately, landlords are doing things, housing providers. Let me just say that all housing providers are not created equal. All right. There's some really bad housing providers, just like there's some really bad tenants. Okay. But once this national eviction moratorium is up, I promise you that you're going to see a lot of lawsuits, not against tenants, but against landlords, because landlords have been doing things that violate the law. So when the courts are open, guess what, guys? It's going to be open for everybody, not just tenants, but for landlords as well. So this story that I'm talking about, here's what I want landlords and housing providers to know. All right. Hello, Sissy. Thank you so much for tuning in from Brooklyn. Brooklyn, New York is in the building. Number one, here's the thing. Landlords, housing providers, don't deny housing because there is a child in the household. And I know sometimes people have a preference, right? I teach property management. I have a 6-week training course where I actually train housing providers how to create seamless systems to attract their ideal tenant. So I go into this in depth, a lot greater on so many levels. And I understand, right? Because I'm a housing provider. I manage property. I've been managing property for well over 28 years. So I get it. Sometimes people do have a preference, but just because you have a preference, you cannot violate the law. All right. So you cannot just flat out deny housing because there is a child or children in the household. So on one of my previous lives, I shared information. I painted a picture where, let's say, you have a rental property, right? And there's this couple who comes in. Let's just say a single mom comes in. She's had a long day. All right. And she comes with all 5 of her children. Okay. So it's a total of 6 people that's trying to rent this 3-bedroom apartment. Okay. And the children are running all over the place. They're tired, they're screaming, they're yelling. The mom is just she's just so frustrated. It's almost as if she doesn't even have control. So the children, they're just running around, they're touching stuff, they're turning on the water faucet, they're turning on the light switches, they're opening and slamming the doors, they're yelling, they're screaming, they're having fun, they're all over the place. And you look up and there is dirt or chocolate all over their hands, and they put it right on the wall, right? Now, let's just say you go ahead and allow this applicant to submit all the background checks, right? They complete the application, they pay the application fee. Although this mother has multiple kids, people are entitled to have families. Let's say that she does have good credit. Maybe she's in college and working, and she can't afford to rent your rental property. Just because this situation has taken place with all these kids, unless you have a valid legal reason why you cannot rent to her, you cannot discriminate against this person because they have kids and the behavior isn't what you think it should be. Children's behavior is not a reason to discriminate or to deny an application. All right, so that's the first thing that I wanted to share. Hello, Lady Isaac. Thank you so much for tuning in, beautiful. All right, so the next thing is this, guys, because I want you to really understand the totality of fair housing laws and what it means. So the second thing is this: you must apply the same terms and conditions regardless of the familial status. So whatever applies to, let's say, a market tenant or a Section 8 tenant, whoever the renter is, whatever type of income they have, whether they're in some sort of housing program, some sort of housing subsidy program or not, you have to treat everybody the same, whether there's a family, whether there's children involved or not. Make sure you have a criteria in place that will give you the structure you need to manage this application process for your rental property business. And I promise you that fair housing laws are sometimes they're changing. There may be things that they're added into the law yearly. So you want to make sure that you stay current on fair housing laws. If you are, let me just say this, if you are self-managing your property, or if you're managing someone else's property, please make sure that you know what fair housing laws are, that you understand it, take a class, sign up somewhere. I promise you it will be a whole lot cheaper to know the law versus not knowing it, because discrimination happens and it doesn't have to be intentional. All right. In this situation, it wasn't intentional. This landlord couple, they flat out did not know the law. All right. So here's the third thing. Don't focus on people. When it comes to advertising and you're looking to rent your property out to whoever, right? Don't focus on people. Focus on the property. Because if you do that, I promise you, in many cases, you'll steer clear of someone saying that you discriminated. In your advertising, please do not say no children allowed. In your advertising, please do not say we only have a female community or male community. Do not put that stuff in advertising. Listen, here's a mistake that I made many years ago, and it wasn't intentional, right? Because I'm just a person who care about people. And so I was managing property for this young lady, and she says, well, Karissa, I've always had market tenants. I really just want to make a difference. And this time I want to rent to someone in a Section 8 program. All right. So Section 8, that's the Housing Choice Voucher Program, for those of you who don't know the correct term. So Section 8 is the former term that a lot of people can relate to. All right. So she said, well, Karissa, I really want to make a difference. Now, this client of mine, when I tell you she put all high-end stuff in her rental properties, I mean top of the line. All right. She spared no cost, no expense to making sure that her tenants lived in a really great rental property. So she said, well, Karissa, I want you to find me a Section 8 tenant. That's all I want, because I want to make a difference. I've never had a Section 8 tenant. I've always had market tenants, right? So me, with my crazy self, I put something out saying that prefer Section 8 tenants only. All right. Now, I don't even know what type of day I was having. So it's not that I was discriminating against anybody. and I knew what this client wanted, but that's a violation. So please make sure that you're not even using that language. Do not say that you only want Section 8. Do not say that you don't accept Section 8. Please don't say that you don't accept vouchers. I promise you, that is an easy lawsuit waiting to happen. All right. So let me just take a poll here, because I want to know your level of comfort with information that I share today. All right. And we know that knowledge is power, but knowledge is only powerful when you use it and when you are executing it, right? All right. So I want to take a poll today. All right. So here's my first question. All right. So let's say an applicant and his pregnant wife, they want to rent an available 1-bedroom unit. All right. You're concerned about potential noise complaints, about a crying baby possibly, but you could be accused of discrimination based on familiar status if you tell them that the unit is no longer available. Is that true or false? So let me repeat the question because it is really long. So an applicant and his pregnant wife comes in. They want to rent your available 1-bedroom unit. You're concerned about noise complaints. You're concerned about the baby crying, but you are concerned that you could be accused of discrimination based off of familiar status if you tell them that the property is not available. Is that a true or a false statement? Is it true that that's discrimination according to familiar status? Is that true or false? I want to see what your responses are. Good evening, good evening, good evening. You said, with my background check process, I rent to first applicants that clear the process. I promise you, if you steer clear, if you use that principle, you would be okay. Hello, Paul. Thank you so much for tuning in from DC. Sissy, you said that's true. All right. Sam, you said that's true. Hello, Kathy. Thank you so much for tuning in. You said that's true. Hey, Robin, you said that's true. All right. Guess what, guys? That's true. That's true. All right. That could be a situation where you are accused of discriminating based on familiar status. All right. So let me ask a second question. So let's say you have a couple that has twin toddler boys and they ask about an available 2-bedroom unit. All right. There are 3 available. 2 are on the ground floor and 1 is on the 4th floor. And there is an obvious danger of children falling from balconies. So is it okay for you to tell them about the rental property that's on the ground floor only? All right. So you have 3 available properties. All right. Can you only tell this couple about the rental property that's on the ground floor? And is that a violation of fair housing laws based off of familiar status? Let me see what your responses are. True or false? All right, Sissy, you said no. I'm going to repeat the question. You have a couple with twin toddler boys. All right, they ask about available 2-bedroom units. There are 3 available. 2 of them are on the ground floor and 1 is on the 4th floor. There is an obvious danger or concern of children falling from balconies from higher floors, right? So it's okay to tell them only about the 2 that are on the ground floor. So the question is that true or is that false, that this is discrimination? All right, Sissy, you said yes. Robin, full disclosure, I like that. Kathy, you said false. Okay. Lady Isaac, you said you can't ask a potential tenant if they have children. That's true. But the question is, do you only tell them, if you only tell them about the rental property that's on the 1st floor because you're concerned that if they move into a 3-bedroom or a larger apartment on a higher floor, that there's this possibility that they may fall from the window. So the question is, can you do that? Sissy, you says you have to tell them about all units. Robin, you said it is discrimination. Sam, you said tell them about both properties, but explain your hesitation. All right, so I like your responses. So here's the thing. If you have, in this situation, and here's why I did this, because I want people to understand. If you have 2 rental properties I'm sorry, 2 rental units on the first floor and you have one on a higher floor. You have to tell them about all of them, because if you don't, then it would be considered discrimination because you are steering people, right? Steering is that's discrimination. So you want to make sure that you tell them about all of the rental units wherever they are. You tell them, hey, we have 3 bedrooms available. We have 3 bedrooms available. 2 are on the first floor in building A, and we have another one on the second floor. You tell them everything that is available. So Sam, I'm going to go back to your question because you never want to explain your hesitation. Here's why. It is not our job as housing providers, as property managers or property owners, all right, to have a reservation, or even if we are hesitant, even if we have a concern, maybe let's say you, Sam, I know that you have a good heart for people, right? But sometimes having a good heart is not protected by the law. People may not perceive it as you having a good or kind heart. So you tell people about what you have available. You don't even share your hesitation. All right, because your hesitation or your reservation may come off as this landlord don't really want to rent to me, so they're violating fair housing laws. I'm going to call my attorney. And I promise you that will go in so many wrong ways for you, Sam, or whoever else is watching. Please don't share your hesitation. Just let them know what you have available. And Kathy, yes, that is discrimination. All right, so I have another one for you. All right, so most of your residents have lived in the community for many years. And since most are over the age of 55, you are justified under the senior housing exemption to restrict occupancy to adults and to advertise the building as adult-only community. All right, is this a violation of fair housing laws? So most of your residents who've lived in your community, they've lived there for many, many years, and most of them are over 55. So the question is, can you tell applicants that it's an adult-only community? Let me see your responses on that one. Can you do that? Yes or no? Now, I didn't cover this, so I'm interested to see what your comments are. I do have some students watching, so I expect my students to get this correctly. All right, but the question is, most of your residents, they've been there for a long time. Most of them are over the age of 55, right? You respect your tenants, you respect the community, right? You've had this rental property for a long time. And so when applicants, new applicants come in, because now let's say somebody passed away, you have a new rental property that you want to rent out, all right? And you begin to tell people that this is an adult-only community. Can you do that? Yes or no? All right, let me see what your comments are. All right, so Paul, you said that's a violation. Okay, Sam, you said yes, you can tell them that. Sissy, you said no, you can't. Val says no. Robin says no, that is age discrimination. V, you said it is a violation. All right, Sissy, you says you can't personally make it an adult-only community. Kathy, let's see what you said. I believe you can because there are communities as such. So here's the thing. All right, unless your rental property fit the community, fit the rules by law, meaning that all your paperwork is set up and you have legally made it a 55 and older community. I don't care if you had tenants that's been there for 1,000 years. It's not an adult-only community. All right, that's a violation of fair housing laws. That is a violation of fair housing laws. You cannot do that under no stretch of the imagination. I know you might have a preference because seniors, they get in there, they'll take care of the rental property, they'll stay in place for a long time. Unless you have it legally set up as that type of community, please don't tell people that this is an adult-only community. And please do not put that in your advertising, because that could be an easy lawsuit filed against you that you would have to pay a prospect. All right. Walter, no, not if it wasn't zoned as senior. Absolutely. Walter, you get it. You get it. All right. I have another question for you. So a community may not be found liable for housing discrimination for applying occupancy standards, limiting all units to 2 people per bedroom. True or false? Now, I know this is going to trip some people up. Let me repeat the question. I'm going to repeat it a little bit slowly. I know I talk fast. I'm sorry about that. A community may not be found liable for housing discrimination for applying occupancy standards, which limits all units to 2 people per bedroom. Is that true or false? So that means if that's your occupancy standard, to say that there are only 2 people per bedroom, can a rental community be found liable for housing discrimination based off of that? Yes or no? Let me see what your questions are, your answers are. All right. Okay, let's go to you, Paul. That sounds true. Robin, you said true. Keyword all. Sam says yes. Anybody else? Anybody else want to take a stab at this? All right. Anybody else? Anybody else? All right, Kathy, no. Sissy, you said if it is not registered as, so you can't do it. Okay, so here's the thing. You have to know what the occupancy standard or the guideline is for that particular rental property or that jurisdiction. All right, so remember, for those of you who tuned in early on, I shared the information about the story that I'm talking about today, where this couple, husband and wife, they have 3 children. They're trying to rent this 2-bedroom apartment. All right. So based off of that particular jurisdiction and the laws in that area, they can't use that occupancy guideline to say that only 2 per bedroom, because just depending on where the rental property is. So I'll use Washington, D.C., for instance. In Washington, D.C., you can have 2 per sleeping quarter and 1 in the living room. All right. So in that situation, a landlord can't say that they only want 2 per bedroom as their occupancy standard, because that would limit that couple, or that family, a maximum of 4 people, right? So in this story that I'm sharing today, there are 5 people, right? So the law says that there are 2 per sleeping quarters in DC and in many jurisdictions, which is why you have to know what the law says. 2 per sleeping quarter, 2 per bedroom, plus 1 in the living room. So in this last question, this last scenario I pose, can a landlord just put it as their occupancy standard as 2 per bedroom and let that be it, let that be all? So the answer is no. A landlord cannot do that. They can't just make that applicable for everybody to say it's only 2 per sleeping quarters and that's it. Right? So you have to know what the law says, because what we don't know can or will hurt us. And I know that question was a little tricky and some people don't know that, but this is why I'm sharing this information today, because knowledge is power. And I want people to understand, not just landlords, but I want tenants to understand their rights. All right. So check out the occupancy standard in whatever jurisdiction that rental property is in. And from one state to the next, from one city to the next, the laws are going to be different. There may be additional protected classes. All right. So find out what fair housing laws apply to that rental property. So if it's in DC or PG or Atlanta or Charlotte, right, or New York or Texas, find out in that particular jurisdiction what fair housing laws protects those tenants, because there are so many protected classes. Things are added. Things change every year. So please make sure that you stay current on the law. Please make sure that you know and understand what applies to tenants, what you can and cannot do. Guys, I thank you so much for tuning in. This is what I do each and every Monday right here on this Facebook or my YouTube channel at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I share information because sharing is caring, and I want people to be knowledgeable about the processes, to be knowledgeable about laws that are in place. All right. If you're watching on YouTube, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. That way you'll be notified when I go live, when I give information, when I give updates, because things are always changing. So for the month of April, I'm sharing stories and information about fair housing laws because it's National Fair Housing Month. All right. And if you feel like this information was helpful, please share it with somebody else. Share it with your friends, share it with your family or loved ones. Tell them to tune in next week at 7:30 p.m. right here on my Facebook or my YouTube channel. Please stay connected. All right. So if you're on my email list, you've probably got an invite to watch this. And if you're watching the replay, let me say thank you so much. I do appreciate and I value you and your time. I hope that you'll join me next week. All right. Right here at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, Facebook as well as YouTube. So I'm not saying goodbye. I'll just say see you later. All right. If you have questions, if you have comments, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. If I'm online or not, I will respond to it. Okay. All right. So here is a question or comment. DC law doesn't require participation in DCHA programs. Can I just say I don't participate in DCHA programs? If an inquirer asks if I accept vouchers. Okay, that is a great question. If you have any other questions for me before I end this live, please go ahead and drop it in the comment section. So, and I do appreciate this question. This is why I'm here today. DC has a category of income. All right. And so anytime you have a participant that is in any type of housing subsidy program, they are protected under income. So it is against the law for you to say that you do not participate or that you do not accept vouchers. That would be against the law. That would be an easy lawsuit. All right. I promise you it's not worth it. So set a criteria. And as of today, you know that in DC, income is a protected class. A voucher participant, somebody who has a Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program subsidy, somebody who is in rapid rehousing, that is considered income. That is a protected class. So please, after today, if you advertise, if anybody call you, please don't tell them that you don't accept the voucher. All right. It could be a tester. And I promise you that they are cracking down on landlords and housing providers when it comes to fair housing laws. All right. So this is why I do what I do, because I want people to know what you can and cannot do. All right. You have to know your rights. Thank you so much, Kathy. You said, thank you for the knowledge. This is what I'm here for. Thank you, Sam, for tuning in. Thank you, Robin, for tuning in. Guys, I hope that you'll join me right here next week at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. And again, please share this information with somebody else because sharing is caring. And I'll see you guys next week.